This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the broadcast. The U.S. and Iran closing in on a deal to extend the ceasefire by 2 months and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It could also open the door to ending the war if agreement can be reached on Iran's nukes. NBC's Richard Engel gets us started.
This Iran deal increasingly looks like a mirage. Every single day we seem to be getting closer, but never get there. Now, U.S. officials say they do have a memorandum of understanding with Iran, but it hasn't been finalized.
Former National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland.
The devil will be in the details. How do you enforce it? How do you make sure that Iran is obeying it? You can't trust them.
Midi scholar Sheila Nazarian's not holding out much hope for this so-called memorandum of understanding.
These talks are going to fall apart. Right now, all President Trump is trying to do is get the strait opened and get oil flowing and the price of oil down. Iran is never going to give up their nuclear ambitions. It's just not going to happen.
Dr. Rebecca Grant is an international security expert at the Lexington Institute.
I got to tell you, unless President Trump gets the deal he wants from Iran, he will strike again.
The proposed ceasefire still needs the signatures of both President Trump and Iran's Ayatollah. New developments in the Russia-Ukraine war, and it's raising tensions in that part of the world. A Russian drone injured 2 people overnight in Romania, which happens to be a NATO state. The drone crashed into an apartment building in southeastern Romania. NATO called the strike a serious violation of international law. In Central Africa, the death toll from an Ebola outbreak is growing. It's spreading faster than health officials can contain it. ABC's Kira Phillips.
The CDC now says that there are about 1,200 suspected and confirmed cases of Ebola and more than 250 suspected deaths. The new cases spreading in the southeastern part of the DRC, which borders Rwanda and Burundi.
Researchers in Europe are fast-tracking a new vaccine to treat the virus. A Blue Origin rocket blew up last night on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral. Sophie Flay with ABC News.
The explosion turning night into day, sending a massive shockwave rippling through the air.
The blast happened while an engine test was being done on the New Glenn rocket, which NASA hopes to use to build lunar landers for the Artemis moon missions. Tom Costello covers space news for NBC.
This was supposed to be what they call a static test fire on the ground, not launching, but it turned into a fiery disaster for the company overnight. This is a 322-foot tall rocket named after John Glenn. It completely blew up about 9 p.m. Blue Origin now investigating what went wrong with this rocket, set to play a critical role in America's return to the moon.
No injuries reported. Blue Origin, of course, is owned by Apple CEO Jeff Bezos. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi appearing before Congress today for questions about the Jeffrey Epstein files. The closed-door hearing expected to focus on her handling of that investigation. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says prosecutions are coming as protesters clash with ICE agents outside a detention center in New Jersey.
I promise you that those rioters and the violence that we saw on our streets in Jersey the last couple days is not going to be tolerated.
He says the demonstrators are out of line.
We have to have law enforcement. Remember, we're doing this with virtually no support from local law enforcement in New Jersey.
The AG says some of those protesters threatened to kill ICE agents and their families. A Dallas apartment building destroyed in a massive natural gas explosion. Here's ABC's Jim Ryan.
It began with a report of a natural gas leak at 12:47 p.m., but in the 2 minutes it took firefighters to arrive.
All of a sudden, you just hear a loud boom. That boom happens, and then my windows they're on the other side of the apartment.
The 23-unit building was flattened once the fire was out, says the Dallas Fire Department's Jason Evans.
We can confirm that there have been 3 fatalities,
including a child. The NTSB will have a team on the ground to help investigate.
Gas prices Prices are going down. The price at the pump 16 cents lower today than it was this time last week. In fact, the national average had its biggest single-day drop since 2008 yesterday. According to AAA, regular unleaded now averages $4.39 a gallon nationwide. That is the lowest pump prices have been since May 1st. Americans are setting aside less of their income. The personal savings rate in this country has hit a new 4-year low. Soaring costs, sticky inflation, and stagnant wages the reason why. 3 out of 4 Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Growing controversy over plans to celebrate America's 250th anniversary on the National Mall and at the White House. From Washington, here's correspondent Gabe Gutierrez.
The president has been gearing up for celebrations in the nation's capital this summer to mark America's 250th birthday, including a series of concerts on the National Mall.
And this momentous anniversary year, that's what it is. It's a momentous year.
But a wave of artists are dropping out of the event called the Great American State Fair. A group called Freedom 250, backed by the president, announced the lineup on Wednesday. But now multiple artists are saying they won't attend, including Martina McBride, Young MC, Bret Michaels, and the Commodores. Many citing a heated political environment, saying they initially thought the events would be more nonpartisan. While plans are moving ahead on another event marking America's 250th, a UFC fight night in June, also celebrating the president's birthday. Construction already underway, transforming the South Lawn of the White House. But now pushback from a key voice, wildly popular podcaster Joe Rogan, a UFC commentator, expressing concern.
The White House thing is odd. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of fighting outside at all. The last time, like last year, same day, it was 100 degrees.
Still, Rogan says he plans to be there. This all comes amid some Republicans' push to mark America's milestone in another way, a proposed $250 commemorative banknote. The Washington Post publishing a mock-up with President Trump's portrait.
I don't think that there's anything untoward about having the President of the United States, the person who was President of the United States, on the 250th anniversary bill.
But under current law, no living person can appear on U.S. currency, so any changes would take an act of Congress.
That's Gabe Gutierrez at NBC. Starting in June, President Trump's signature will start to appear on U.S. currency in celebration of America's 250th anniversary. Still to come on the Noon Report for Friday, energy rebate checks, New York budget deal, and candy workers strike.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, calling for sun clouds, a spot shower, and a breeze this afternoon. More on that and the complete weekend call coming up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. What a mess on the New York State Thruway this morning. Several tractor trailers involved in a crash on eastbound I-90, Ontario County, New York. That accident closed the Thruway for several hours between exits 44 and 43 in Farmington. 8 weeks after the due date, New York Governor Kathy Hochul has finally signed off on a $268.5 billion state budget.
The bill is signed.
With a stroke of the pen, the latest state budget in 16 years is now a done deal.
We went through a lot of battles, working through a lot of challenges, but the result is an extraordinary budget that puts families first.
Susan Arbetter hosts Capitol Tonight on Spectrum News.
For the 5th year in a row, Governor Kathy Hochul is the big winner in this contest of wills known as the state budget negotiation.
Jason McGuire with New York Family says the governor got pretty much everything she wanted in the budget.
We saw a number of issues the governor wanted in what we often refer to as that big ugly. It's where they put a lot of policy in the fiscal plan, and whether or not you agree or disagree with some of what's in that big ugly, it does indicate that the governor's strategy of just waiting, and using the leverage has helped her to accomplish her goals in this state budget.
The budget spends $40 billion on education, $4.5 billion on child care, $1.5 billion on road and bridge repairs, $500 million on distressed hospitals, and $250 million on affordable housing. Also included in the budget, a buffer zone around houses of worship. Protests are not allowed within 50 feet of a church, mosque, or synagogue.
This does make a very powerful statement that says this is something that is a top priority and something that will help
those of us in the Jewish community feel safe, and those in other faith communities be able to freely practice our religion.
Rabbi Peter Stein of Rochester says attacks on houses of worship, especially the Jewish faith, are on the rise in New York. A Wyalusing, Pennsylvania woman accused of embezzling over $120,000 from an education foundation where she worked as treasurer. 49-year-old Kelly White charged with 123 separate crimes. Police say she stole from the not-for-profit by using a debit card and keeping cash at fundraisers. 40,000 state workers and school teachers who retired before 2001 in Pennsylvania have had their pensions frozen for nearly a quarter century. House Democrat Matt Bradford says that's a tragedy.
The simple reality is the Pennsylvania legislature has a moral obligation to finally, without further delay, without any more excuses, to pass a Pre-Act 9 COLA.
The average pension for Pre-Act 9 retirees is about $20,000 a year. Senate Republican leader Joe Pittman says he doesn't know how to pay for a hike in pensions without raising school property taxes. More than 8 million New York households can expect a check in the mail sometime between September and December. It's to combat the high cost of utilities. Corey James at Spectrum News breaks down who gets what in the Protect Our Wallets energy rebate program.
Joint filers with incomes below $150,000 will receive a check of $200. Joint filers with incomes between $150,000 and $300,000 will receive a check of $150. And single filers with incomes below $150,000 will receive a check of $100.
Again, expect those checks in the mail this fall. Critics call the rebate checks a political gimmick meant to help the governor in the run-up to the November midterms. Energy bills in New York are about 70% higher than the national average. The U.S. Army is planning to return more remains of Native Americans who died at an Indian boarding school in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The U.S. government will exhume the remains of a dozen Native children at the site of the former Carlisle Indian Industrial School. 19 graves were removed and returned to their tribes last year. At least 168 students died at that school while it operated between the years 1879 and 1918. Workers at a Pennsylvania candy factory could soon walk off the job. Family Life's Brian Query.
More than 60 union employees at the Bazooka Incorporated ring pop plant in Moosic, Lackawanna County have voted to authorize a strike following stalled contract negotiations. Teamsters Local 299 says workers are pushing for better wages and more affordable health care coverage. Union officials say the vote does not guarantee an immediate strike, but it gives workers the option if negotiations continue to break down. The Moosic facility is the only plant in the United States that manufactures the popular candy Ring Pops. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Central New York Congressman John Mannion has introduced 2 new bills to boost mental health at school. The Syracuse area Democrat wants more mental health professionals in kindergarten through 12th grade schools. He's also encouraging colleges and universities to address suicide prevention. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children and young adults in this country. A new Emerson College poll shows Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro remains a leading candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
Right now, he's tied for 4th place with former Vice President Kamala Harris with 10% support. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg led the poll with 18%, followed by California Governor Gavin Newsom and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Shapiro has long been rumored to be a top candidate for president, but first he faces a re-election challenge this fall from State Treasurer Stacey Garrity. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
The Arnold Palmer Regional Airport in Latrobe, Pennsylvania is hoping Uncle Sam can help bring some commercial flights back to the region. That Westmoreland County Airport was left without its only carrier this spring. When Spirit Airlines pulled out in April, Spirit Airlines no longer exists. Officials in Latrobe hope new federal funding will restore flights to destinations that were once flown by Spirit, including Orlando and Myrtle Beach. This is the Noon Report. Report, a Friday edition on Family Life. Checking sports next, the San Antonio Spurs blew out the Oklahoma City Thunder 118-91 last night in front of their home crowd. Victor Wembanyama led all scorers with 28 points. The Spurs never trailed in this one. They forced a winner-take-all Game 7 Saturday. The victor moves on to face the New York Knickerbockers in the NBA Finals. The Carolina Hurricanes can punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. They host the Montreal Canadiens Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Hurricanes lead the best-of-7 series 3-1. The winner faces the Vegas Golden Knights for all the marbles. The Knights swept the Colorado Avalanche out of the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Pirates settled for a 4-game split with the Chicago Cubs following a 7-2 loss at PNC Park. Paul Skeens got saddled with the loss after giving up just one earned run over 5+ innings. Brian Reynolds went deep in that one. Pittsburgh's now dropped back-to-back games. The New York Mets look to build off their recent success after snapping a 5-game skid with a victory over the Cincinnati Reds. They host the Miami Marlins for a 3-game set tonight at Citi Field. The New York Yankees hope to continue their winning ways. The Bronx Bombers on the West Coast have won 4 straight. They'll do battle against Oakland this evening. The NCAA College Baseball Tournament has arrived. Opening round action gets underway today with the Binghamton Bearcats taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers in the Morgantown Regional. Binghamton won the America East Conference for the 2nd straight year this season. And the first day of the Women's College Softball World Series is in the books. Alabama took down UCLA. Tennessee defeating Texas. Texas Tech trampling Mississippi State. And the Nebraska Cornhuskers notching a 5-3 extra innings victory over Arkansas, which is in the World Series for the first time ever. The action continues today with a pair of elimination games. Defending champion Texas battles Mississippi State, while UCLA will take on Arkansas. At the Family Life Sports Desk, I'm Bob Price. And still to come on the Noon Report, what will motivate voters in this year's midterms? A Christian response to the AI explosion, and WizKid at the National Spelling Bee.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This Sunday is Trinity Sunday, a day set aside in the Western Church calendar to consider the significance of the doctrine of the Trinity. Any pastor or preacher committed to tackling the topic is trembling, or at least he should be. As one of my theology professors once noted, it's basically impossible to explain the Trinity without at some point sliding into heresy. But we have to talk about it because it's at the top of the defining traits of Orthodox Christianity. Perhaps more than any other doctrine. In fact, the Trinitarian understanding of God sets Christianity apart from other monotheistic faiths. It's a difficult doctrine to understand, even more difficult to explain, especially to non-believers. As the great Augustine of Hippo confessed, and I quote, "Which of us understands the Almighty Trinity, and yet which speaks not of it, if indeed it be it? Rare is that soul, which, while it speaks of it, knows what it speaks of." End quote. Well, one way to talk about the Trinity is to clarify all that the Trinity is not. And to that end, the YouTube channel Lutheran Satire has produced the very funny and helpful video, St. Patrick's Bad Analogies. You got to check it out. It's a way to own the struggle rather than treat what God has revealed to us about himself as irrelevant. Even British theologian N.T. Wright has described his struggle with understanding the Trinity and why the ancient Celtic Church was so fascinated by it. Though the Celts do like things in threes, more importantly, these early Christians recognized that the Trinity wasn't an optional doctrine for the Christian faith. In his 2025 book, Spiritual and Religious, Wright explained it this way, quote, "When I was younger, I could never understand why St. Patrick needed to use a shamrock to evangelize the Irish. I had never heard an evangelistic sermon which expounded the doctrine of the Trinity, and I couldn't see why one would want to try. It makes a lot more sense to me now, though. Patrick could not assume, and we could not today assume, that people know what Christians mean when they say God." End quote. Wright went on to observe that for many people, God is simply a product of their own cultural and individual imaginations, not the God who's revealed himself to us in Holy Scripture. But by what he has revealed, Christianity is Trinitarian. If it's not Trinitarian, it's not Christian. The doctrine of the Trinity describes God as both independent and personal in a way that other monotheistic faiths cannot. The gods portrayed in Islam or deism cannot be fully personal on their own. In fact, such a God would be more of an it than a he. Though a person away from others is still a person, what's a person when there are no such things as other persons? A God like that would be more of a thing, more of a force than a person. Even more, such a solitary God would need to create a world and other persons in order to be personal. A God who needs his creation is a dependent God, not independent. According to Scripture, God is a triunity, one God eternally existing in three persons. As such, he needs no one else. It matters that God is not a thing, a force, or an energy. It matters that he exists eternally, one being, three persons. Who we are, including our roles as mothers and fathers, grandparents and grandkids, and friends, reflects and expresses the loving personal nature of the triune God. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored with Dr. Timothy Paget. And for more resources or to share this commentary with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
Thank you, John. Outside we go next. It's weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. Good deal of sunshine in Pennsylvania, but we do expect sun and more cloud cover across western and central New York, where there'll be a shower. It'll be breezy, high temperatures in the 70s. Breezy tonight, some clouds and a shower, low temps 40s to near 50. It's a cool day tomorrow. Morning cloud cover and a sprinkle, then some sun, breezy as well. High temperatures at best 60s. Not as cool as Sunday, a fair amount of sunshine, and a high then mid-60s to the mid-70s.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. It is Friday, folks. Congratulations, you've made it. And this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are this week Jason McGuire at New York Families and Dan Barkowiak at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Well, all of a sudden, guys, it got to be summer. That means closing time at the state capitals. Dan, I want to begin with you. The state budget is due in about a month, and I know there's a lot of wheeling and dealing and lobbying that goes on in Harrisburg this time of year. What are the spending items or policy issues that the Pennsylvania Family Institute is keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, certainly you mentioned spending. I think it's spending within our means. Our governor wants to spend billions more in his budget proposal. A majority of the state's rainy day fund would cover those costs, and frankly, it's just not sustainable. So there's a lot of talk about education. We certainly need to have better investments in education. The federal education tax program, we need Shapiro to opt Pennsylvania into that program. Really pushing back, too, on ill-advised projected revenue sources, marijuana legalization. If you calculate the cost with more marijuana commercialization, it's really going to bring in more harm to communities.
Primary Day in New York is June 23rd, if I look at the calendar, Jason, so that's fast approaching. One-party rule has been the political reality for almost a decade in New York. I think the last time Republicans controlled anything was the state Senate back in 2018, so it's been a while. Do you see any of that changing after this year's midterms?
Well, I don't see major changes in the legislature. There will probably be some movement a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but certainly not that's going to tip control back into the Republicans at this point. That's going to be probably a longer-term strategy for years down the road that will take to claw back control of those legislative chambers.
Supermajorities, anything like that, and going to be changing as a result of the election?
It could. I mean, we're on such the bubble now in the supermajority that, one or two seats this way or that way could change it, but it has little direct impact on the legislature itself and what bills do move or blocked. So it's not really a key point for us at this point.
Yeah. One other thing, and we'll move on. There's been polling that suggests that Bruce Blakeman is closing ground and actually maybe even leading Governor Hochul when it comes to independent voters. Do you put much stock in that polling, Jason?
It's awfully early to put a lot of stock in the polling. It's not that the race isn't going to tighten. It will tighten considerably. There's probably 32% of the population is going to vote Republican no matter what. And then, as we saw in the Lee Zeldin race 4 years ago, do you have enough to overcome the final 5 or 6% you need to actually win the race?
Dan, let's go back to Harrisburg. Governor Shapiro got almost 500,000 more votes in his uncontested primary last week than Stacey Garrity did in hers. Any reason for Republicans to be worried about that?
Well, I think what I would draw attention to for Republicans is how the votes came in. Nearly half the votes for Josh Shapiro, was about 44%, came in through mail-in voting. And for Republicans, mail-in voting was about 22% for Stacey Garrity. So I'm not a fan of mail-in voting. We had absentee ballots available before, but it is now one significant way to calculate votes in Pennsylvania, and I think you can't overlook that. The fact is, in Pennsylvania, while there's still more registered Democrats than Republicans, the margin's shrinking. Since Shapiro was elected, now there's been a decrease in registered Democrats, an increase in registered Republicans. There's a large rise in registered independents. So I think there's opportunities specifically for Republicans to make a case to some of those independent voters before November's election that they should keep in mind.
All right. Let's switch gears and talk about artificial intelligence. I know this is an issue in the news a lot. The Pope issued some guidance recently on preserving human dignity in the face of AI. He compared AI to modern-day Tower of Babel. Dan, I'll begin with you. From a faith perspective, what is most concerning to you when it comes to the proliferation of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, well, certainly AI is much in the news, and my concern would be Christians avoiding the conversation. The Pope recognized digitalization, AI, robotics, it's transforming our world, and it's the dominant conversation, really, our culture's facing. And certainly need guardrails with regards to AI, and I think some of those are on the personal level. I can always remember Pastor John Piper. He asked ChatGPT for a prayer, spits out, wonderful words, and Piper asks, "Is that praise?" And he emphatically says no, and we can't be so dependent on a machine. I think at the same time, I appreciate the words former U.S. Senator Ben Sasse, who we've brought up before, had an article recently, Wall Street Journal, saying the biggest divide in America is going to be between people who figure out harnessing that technology versus those that are outsourcing their affections and their habits. And so I think there's this harnessing versus outsourcing. I think Christians can and should be part of harnessing the tools of AI.
Yeah. Do you use it or does it use you? There's a great debate there about that. I saw recently, Jason, the Surgeon General issuing its very first warning about screen use in children, and AI is a part of that conversation. What challenges or opportunities has AI presented the church and Christians in general when you think of this issue?
It's a challenge and an opportunity. I mean, really both are there. If you look back, you remember how the cell phone, the mobile phone, has become such an important part of our lives. And there are pros and cons of it. We're seeing problems with screen time with kids, but at the same time, there's tremendous benefit now for churches who are using live streaming and are reaching out to their communities through social media. I think the same is going to be true of AI. There are going to be some definite benefits of it, and then there are going to be some real challenges when we begin to form emotional attachments with AI chat bots and things along those lines that are becoming a problem for some people. So the challenge for us is going to be, how do we use it as a tool and not become subject to it as our master?
Amen. Let's circle back around and talk about the midterms. Dan, I heard Stacey Garrity give an interview after the primaries that she thinks the local issues are going to trump national concerns, whether it be the war in Iran or issues with affordability. She thinks it's going to come down to local issues in this election. Is she right? What do you think is going to motivate the voters this fall?
Well, whether it's national, local, I think it's hard not to point one to gas prices. I just paid $100 to fill up my car. So certainly that's there. Utility bills. I just saw electricity's gone up 50% in the last 8 years. So I think you can't avoid some of those economic challenges. But also I think, issues of just how extreme some of the parties have become. I point to issues that we engage upon, abortion and pushing taxpayer funding for any stage in pregnancy of abortion, seeing some of the parties take positions there, protecting girls' sports, what it means to be a man and a woman. You have the Supreme Court Justice David Wecht in Pennsylvania leaving the Democrat Party over the party's response to the rise in anti-Semitism. I think there's extreme positions that I believe will weigh on voters when they go into the ballot box come November.
Yeah, that affordability crisis that we're all facing. The price we pay for the stuff we buy, Jason, I think is going to be a big issue this fall. It's been said many times the party in power tends to lose seats in midterms. If that's true, that's not good for Republicans. They control the House, the Senate, the White House. any reason and think any of that's going to change this year?
I still, in some, with some reservation, but I think Republicans will hold on to the House and the Senate. I think things are still slightly breaking their way. The question in my mind, though, it goes back to what you mentioned with affordability, is can they talk about that issue in a way that the voter feels seen? And while that may sound a little bit like a loose thought out there for us, it is important, and voters want to know that they're being heard, and that when people are speaking about the issue of affordability, they're doing so with authenticity. And so we need to find candidates really that want to win elections. They have to be able to talk about these issues in a way that the voter feels that their problems are being observed and rectified by those in positions of leadership.
All right, that'll have to be the last word this week. So many places we bet if you have questions about any of the topics discussed today, or you simply like to learn more about the Pennsylvania Family Institute doing a great work in Harrisburg, Dan, where can folks find you online?
PAFamily.org.
Stay informed on all the issues in New York. Jason McGuire, New York Families, has a wonderful website as well. Where can folks find you?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
All right, they get it done every Friday. Capital Connection comes your way during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and FamilyLife.org. And finally, at noon for a Friday, 14-year-old Shrey Parikh from Rancho Cucamonga, California, is this year's winner of the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Yeah, Rancho Cucamonga. Try spelling that. Anyway, Parikh won the title by correctly spelling a record-breaking 32 words in just 90 seconds. It happened during a spell-off tiebreaker.
Chikungunya.
CHIKUNGUNYA.
Bromocriptine.
BROMOCRIPTINE.
Wow, talk about your whiz kid. By the way, bromocriptine served as the winning word this year. In case you're wondering, bromocriptine is a kind of prescription medication. And for his efforts, 14-year-old Shrey Parikh of Rancho Cucamonga, California. Just fun to say, isn't it? He gets to take home $50,000 in prize money. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, the 29th of May. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.